Are you looking for the best camera phones of 2025? In this video we will look at some of the 4 best phones on the market. Before we get started with our video, we have included links in the description, so make sure you check those out to see which one is in your budget range. Starting at number 1. Google Pixel 9 Pro. The Google Pixel line is no longer an example of high-end image processing with modest hardware. After years of punching above its weight class with software alone, Google upgraded its Pixel 8 Pro to compete with the best camera phones around. Now, it's gone a step further with the Gemini-infused Pixel 9 Pro. It builds on the upgrades of the previous Pixel 8 series and infuses them with even more editing tricks courtesy of the Tensor G4. Google's latest flagship doesn't really make any hardware tweaks from its predecessor, at least not as far as the camera sensors are concerned. The Pixel 9 Pro's 50MP primary sensor and 48MP telephoto sensor still shine, and the latter is still locked in at 5x optical zoom. Even the 48MP ultra-wide lens that rounds out the aluminum-coated camera bar is pretty much the same. Outside of the camera sensors, though, Google has raised every other aspect of its Pixel 9 build quality to new heights with a new, flat frame, a slightly smaller camera bar, and brand new color options. Of course, how you use a camera is often the deciding factor above sheer specs, and the Pixel 9 Pro is no different. It offers the same slimmed-down camera experience that we're used to from a Pixel, though it does take better advantage of manual controls than ever before. Google previously offered its manual controls on the Pixel 8 Pro, so they'll already be familiar to some Pixel fans, though the updated panorama mode will be of interest to just about anyone. The Pixel 9 Pro has finally simplified what's long been one of the more difficult camera features to figure out, and it's mostly thanks to the Tensor G4. In fact, we went so far as to say that the Tensor G4 chip improves one feature that's not easily replicated: reliability. It adds features like photo unblur and an automatic macro in the palm of your hand, in addition to existing options like face unblur and real tone. We found that real tone delivered accurate skin color recreation, even in difficult lighting scenarios. Further wrinkles like action pan and long exposure free up even more creativity. We loved freezing a subject in the middle of the action, and capturing a soft, flowy waterfall isn't bad, either. In fact, you might find yourself missing the automatic long exposure feature when you switch to any other smartphone camera. The Pixel 8 Pro's effortless processing and onboard smarts allow it to compete against superior hardware and pick up software features long after launch. Unfortunately, Google's days of slam dunk values might be behind us. Now that the Pixel 9 Pro comes in 2 different sizes, it comes at 2 different prices. Should you decide to go small, you'll have to pony up $999 for the 6.3-inch Pixel 9 Pro, while the larger Pixel 9 Pro XL will set you back $1,100. At number 2. Apple iPhone 16 Pro. Apple adopted a 48MP sensor on the iPhone 14 Pro, which it's taken to calling the main camera rather than the wide camera, and paired it with 2 familiar 12MP backups. Now, though, Apple has jumped into the scramble for more megapixels, dropping its 12MP ultra-wide sensor in favor of a 48MP option. It's still part of a powerful, flexible triple camera setup, and it still performs admirably against the best that Android has to offer. Apple even claims a 10x optical zoom range, though it's using the 0.5x ultra-wide and 5x optical telephoto to get there. Apple's detail recreation is excellent, and the iPhone itself is best described as a creator's toolkit. If you're willing to shoot in RAW, you can export massive files straight from the main camera and edit them to your heart's content in Lightroom. Apple has also completely revamped its photographic styles, which means you can tweak your contrast and tint to match your personal style with more than a dozen different profiles. If you're itching to join the Apple Intelligence party, the iPhone 16 series also supports visual intelligence, which is launched via the camera control. We've focused primarily on still images through our top camera phone picks so far, but the iPhone shows its strength as a video camera option as well. It still carries a special cinematic mode for video, which adds digital bokeh and autofocuses on faces as they look at the camera. We found that the feature generally worked as advertised, though it can struggle with multiple faces at one time. You'll also have to stump extra cash for professional costumes and lighting before you can make the iPhone 16 Pro a true go-to for your feature film, no matter how easy Apple's commercials make it look. Apple's ProRes Video also delivers lossless compression, which makes editing your footage slightly more manageable. Under the hood, you also get Apple's latest A18 Pro chipset, with 8GB of RAM and up to 1TB of onboard storage. As you'd expect from a flagship chipset, the A18 Pro puts up impressive numbers, improving upon Apple's recent processors to keep pace with the best of Android. The gap isn't quite as large as it's been in recent years, though, possibly due to the increased thermals of the updated chipset. We can't skip over the fact that the iPhone 16 Pro still has a smaller battery than most of its competitors. Mix in the increased heat, and it's not all that easy to stretch the iPhone 16 Pro for a day and a half between charges anymore. Unfortunately, Apple's modest 21W wired and 25W MagSafe wireless charging isn't the fastest, but at least there are more MagSafe accessories available than ever. At number 3. Google Pixel 8a. Looking for something more affordable? Look no further than the Google Pixel 8a. It's currently our pick for the best budget camera phone you can buy, and that's in large part thanks to all of the features it shares with its more expensive sibling, the Pixel 8. It costs the same as its direct predecessor and is considerably more affordable than the Pixel 8 Pro. It includes plenty of the flagship's creature comforts, from the Tensor G3 SoC to Pixel-only features like Magic Eraser. As for the camera hardware, the Pixel 8a utilizes a 64MP camera with OIS and EIS paired with a 13MP ultra-wide snapper with a 120-degree field of view. This combo produces pleasing results with acceptable color reproduction, even in low light, especially if you live between 1x and 2x zoom levels. Quality starts to suffer beyond this point because there's no dedicated zoom lens. The 13MP selfie camera paired with Google's excellent software processing creates social media-ready results. The 6.1-inch display and pocketable size make the Pixel 8a a great point-and-shoot snapper. Beyond its imaging qualities, the Pixel 8a is also a stellar smartphone. If you can live with its plasticky body, the phone will reward you with 7 years of Android support. This is by far the best promise in the budget Android smartphone world, keeping up with pricier smartphones. The Tensor G3 also ensures smooth and snappy performance and useful on-device Gemini AI features, giving the Pixel 8a another unique selling point. Like its predecessor, the Pixel 8a's main pain point is its slow charging speeds. While its battery life is commendable, the 18W wired and 7.5W wireless charging will have you sitting at the wall for an eternity. At number 4. Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. Samsung's flagships regularly land among the best all-around Android phones, so it shouldn't be surprising to see a Galaxy device immediately. We put the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra through its paces in our review, and its premium setup lives up to its high-end price. This is the best camera phone available right now and perhaps the best in the long history of smartphone cameras. Its sheer megapixel might on both the front and back, combined with in-depth control, make it the best camera phone for almost any user. The new model's main imaging toolkit is largely consistent with the Galaxy S23 Ultras except for the new telephoto camera. A wider aperture 50MP 5x snapper replaces the 10MP 10x telephoto, offering better mid-length zoom with a sensor crop for longer focal lengths. Beyond this tweak, we've seen a pretty similar experience across the two devices. Samsung's primary sensor is, of course, its megapixel-hogging 200MP ISOCELL HP2 once again. It's backed by Samsung's powerful 12MP ultra-wide lens and a 10MP 3x telephoto that we haven't mentioned yet. Around the front, you'll find a 12MP selfie camera tucked into the Infinity-O display. Although megapixels only tell a portion of the story, the combination of lenses sets the Galaxy S24 Ultra up nicely to excel in almost any situation. We've run it through a gauntlet of situations during our initial review, as well as a selection of comparisons against some of the other devices on this list, and it picks up right where its predecessor left off. It returns clean, sharp images with decent HDR, but only when warranted, and Samsung's standard color profile, which is finally inching a bit closer to reality. Of course, pixel binning makes the massive 200MP sensor a little easier to manage. You can push it back to the full resolution as needed, but we found that it still performed admirably at its lower resolution. Despite the change in telephoto sensors, the Galaxy S24 Ultra remains sharp and competitive across its entire range. Its standard telephoto lens adds 3x optical zoom to the mix, while the periscope telephoto partner increases to 5x optical zoom. The result is that you can punch in much further on images without losing quality. Of course, as the third and fourth cameras in the setup, the telephoto shooters have much smaller lenses, but we didn't notice too much drop-off in terms of color or clarity. No, 10x optical zoom won't be as clean or as clear as 1x zoom from the primary camera, but it easily trumps hybrid and digital zoom from the phone's closest rivals. Even Samsung's ultra-wide shooter keeps distortion to a minimum and is capable of nearly matching the primary shooter's colors. We regularly enjoy Samsung's default camera app and its bevy of controls and shooting modes, and we're waiting for the day when RAW support gets rolled in. Right now, the optional Expert RAW app provides that extra punch, offering even more control over your white balance, aperture, and shutter speed, as well as exporting RAW files for deeper edits later. It's not the most approachable app for camera newcomers, but it's the best way to push the 4 sensors to their limits. Technically, you can go all the way to 100x space zoom with the Galaxy S24 Ultra, though it's unlikely that you'll do so frequently. This is where Samsung turns to digital cropping to get results, and the final photos aren't quite up to snuff most of the time. We mostly only ventured past 30x space zoom for curiosity's sake, but you do start to lose details and rely on Samsung's post-processing. Intense zooming shows off Samsung's image stabilization, however, which can go a long way in cutting out your shaky hands. If nothing else, you can also use the insane zoom options as a magnifying glass to read signs and menus from further away. We've also noticed that the Galaxy S24 Ultra struggles a bit with moving subjects, so you may have to click into manual mode and speed up your shutter for photos of kids and pets. We have to give Samsung a little credit for not only keeping the Galaxy S24 Ultra with a hefty 5000 mAh battery but also keeping the charging speed punchy. In reality, that means you can fill the hefty cell in just about an hour, and the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 for Galaxy continues to push the older processors further into the background.